I've gone through a variety of my favorite dark comedy cartoons from my childhood, such as The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, Courage the Cowardly Dog, and the Powerpuff Girls. Yeah, that one caught me off guard. But today we are bridging the gap between Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon and talking about Invader Zim and why it's more disturbing than you remember. The show follows Zim, who's an outcast of the imperialistic Urkins due to his chaotic and ineptitude nature, which resulted in him nearly destroying his homeworld during Operation Impending Doom.
But sir, we're still on our own planet!
Silence! Twist those knobs!
He was then banished and sent to a random corner of space with his new little buddy Gurr, who has pocket change and lint for a brain. No, seriously, his brain is just pocket change. Now, as much as I loved this show, it was unfortunately canceled within a year after only 26 episodes due to the show's big budget, low viewership, as well as the controversy caused due to its intense themes and violence. So I figured we would dive into one of my favorite shows from the early 2000s to relive some of its more disturbing episodes, and what better episode to kick this video off with than Dark Harvest. The episode opens up with a game of catch.
My organs!
Damn, man, you didn't have to hit him in his squeedly spooch. Now, of course, Dib overhears this and starts plotting a way to look inside of Zim's body. Apparently, Amazon's same-day delivery existed in this universe, and Dib gets a pair of X-ray goggles delivered to the school. We cut to the teacher, Miss Bitters, who's explaining how the children's song Ring Around the Rosie is actually referring to the horrible symptoms of the bubonic plague. However, she's interrupted by the cooing coming from a pigeon who flew inside and perched on Zim's head, which resulted in him being sent to the nurse's office for a case of head pigeons. She tells Zim he needs a hall pass to leave the classroom, but she doesn't whip out a ruler or a clipboard or some other commonly used item for a hall pass. No, she pulls out a metal necklace that tightens around his neck and will apparently explode if he leaves the school grounds. Dib then mocks Zim, telling him that he'll be found out once the nurse realizes he doesn't have human organs, but Zim bets his squeedly spooch on it and heads through the school, which honestly looks like an insane asylum or a dirty, rundown hospital. The hall monitor arrives and Zim asks him if he's full of organs and if he would notice if he was missing a few. He starts laughing maniacally before replacing one of this kid's organs with the exploding hall pass. So I hope this kid doesn't try to leave the school grounds anytime soon. Miss Bitters is still going into detail about the bubonic plague, while Dib is drawing a picture of Zim cut open on an operating table with his organs falling out. Kinda looks like my art book that got me sent to the school counselor back in middle school. Dib can't take it anymore and decides he needs to know what's going on with Zim, so he shoves a broken pencil up his nose and claims that it's lodged in his brain so he can go to the nurse. And I'm not gonna lie, I think he may have actually damaged his brain. I mean, it is shoved way up there. Now, he doesn't get stuck with a necklace that explodes, but he does get stuck with a radiator for a hall pass. Now, I know this hall pass is bigger and probably even heavier than he is, but I can't lie, I'd much prefer that to a necklace that would explode and blow my head off. Anyways, Dib makes it to the nurse, who's messing around with a can that makes moo noises, and she informs him that no one has come in with a case of head pigeons yet. But the hall monitor is freaking out about cooing, and we find out that he's missing his liver. Dib, using his X-ray goggles, is able to confirm this is Zim doing this and knows he has to stop him. Unfortunately, as soon as Dib leaves, Zim unscrews the vents and steals the brain of the nurse and replaces it with a can of poop. She starts foaming at the mouth and the creepy music kicks on, so at this point, I think it's safe to assume she's dead. We cut to Dib barely making it through the hallway with this giant 62-pound hall pass, and he hears the cooing coming from the distance. Zim pops out of the vents above and goes to zap out one of Dib's organs, but the bell rings and the kids flood the hallway, saving Dib. He starts calling out to all of the children, telling them their organs are in danger, but he's too late. Little Jimmy had one of his organs replaced with the hall pass, and he falls over and dies. I think. I don't know, but he looks dead. Dib makes it to the cafeteria where almost everyone is doubled over in pain or collapsed on the floor. Zim got to them all. Even his sister Gaz, but she lucked out and doesn't seem to be too bothered with what her organ was replaced with. Although some other kids weren't so lucky. I mean, this kid has a clock in his neck, and this kid has a live cat inside of them. But this is just the beginning. Dib looks up and sees nothing but organs. Heart, tonsils, intestines, colon, brain, you name it, it's there, and Zim is just chilling on this bench, put a few pounds on, to say the least, drooling on himself, and is bending the bench from the weight. But at least he still has his trusty little pigeon on his head. He slurps that organ up like he's a dog eating spaghetti, and we learn about all the organs Zim has before he realizes he doesn't have any lungs and takes off to the vents to hunt down another victim. Dib vows to stop him and hunts down, let's call him Torque, who seems to be the only kid left other than Dib that still has all of his organs. With Torque creeped out by Dib's rambling and Dib distracted, it's time for surgery. We hear a zap of electricity and a light down a dark hallway as Dib enters the dark room, scared and on edge looking for Torque. He walks past an x-ray machine, the music kicks on, and Zim comes flying down from the ceiling with all his organs exposed. It's one of the most disturbing moments in the episode, and the music just adds to the ambience. Dib finally realizes he failed at saving Torque, and with the cooing nearby, he starts to panic. He falls over, scrambling to save his life, and rushes to the door. Zim, however, is just stalking his prey and waiting in the dark. The ceiling tiles start plummeting faster and faster as Zim is hunting down a panicked Dib who's running as fast as he can, but he won't be so easily caught. He manages to get away and heads to the boiler room, reminiscent of Freddy Krueger in the Nightmare on Elm Street, and you just know it's going to be bad. Zim descends from the sky and succeeds in replacing one of Dib's organs with the Moo toy the nurse had towards the beginning of the episode. We cut to the nurse's office where the new nurse goes to check on Zim and...
Why, you're one of the healthiest little children I've ever seen, and such plentiful organs. And what's the matter with you, young man?
Dib moos, the new nurse panics and says he isn't human as reporters flood the room and paint him in the media as the hideous, mooing cyborg boy. I wonder if that other nurse is actually dead. Oh, who am I kidding? Her brain was replaced with a can of poo. If you've watched my videos before, you know I love Halloween. And I love Halloween specials, and this next episode is no exception. It's dark, it's dirty, it's downright horrifying, and I love every second of it. Invader Zim's Halloween spectacular of spooky doom opens up with Miss Bitters mocking a small child dressed as a princess as she tells the children about her acid trip that turned her into a fairy princess until she unalived herself. Then she rants about how Halloween has been ruined and has turned kids into candy-starved zombies, which of course terrifies Zim, and as all the kids in the class terrorize him, he really loses it when he notices that Dib is not in the classroom.
The Dib! He's missing!
Now Zim thinks he's been taken by the candy zombies, but we see that isn't quite right. We see the school hallway flashing and being taken over bit by bit with what looks like a dark prison in the underworld, and Dib is screaming. The world goes back to normal as Dib rushes into the classroom, clearly in distress about nightmare visions, but Miss Bitters ain't having any of that.
Nightmare visions!
It's called life, Dib. Sit down.
Zim is shouting about Dib, and with the class distracted and looking at him, Dib disappears and fades back into existence before the class notices. He's screaming about hideous monsters, and the kids and Miss Bitters decide to use the crazy card and strap a beeping collar around his neck. I mean, seriously, what is with this school's tech? The cuckoo cops break a hole in the wall, grab Dib before taking off and tossing him inside the crazy cab. Because the cuckoo cops' motto says, "If they crack, we're on track." Dib starts to vanish again, and we finally get to see what he sees. A disturbing, alternate dimension filled with monsters and destruction everywhere. Dib overhears the monsters driving the crazy cab, saying he's the chosen one and they've been waiting for him. He ends up back in his own dimension and starts jumping up and down, screaming about the monsters talking to him, and
I'm sane, you know.
damn, I can't believe that didn't work. We cut to Gur freaking out as usual and having a blast with his octopus buddy, but absolutely flips the hell out over his taquitos, which are burning in the kitchen. Dib, now at the crazy house for boys, is strapped to a table, telling the story of what is going on with these reality jumps. He was in his father's lab messing around with a dimensional scope, and he tripled the output, which activated the reality jumps, which have been progressively getting longer and more intense ever since. So his dad arrives just in time for the doctors to tell Dib they've decided he's insane and will be spending the rest of his days at this facility. And his dad just could not care less. Just, damn, man, I ended up with a crazy kid. All right, back to the lab, I guess. Like, he does not care. The cuckoo cops ditch him in a cell to go get some tacos, and Dib reality jumps yet again. There's monsters everywhere in cells. There's even the little stalker kid that stalked Zim. I don't even remember his name, but he's creepy. And I don't know how he got there, but whatever. One of the other prisoners tell Dib he's the key to freedom and that this world is all a part of his imagination, which causes him to start questioning his sanity, and then he's grabbed by security. We cut to Zim's perspective, and he's boarding up the house in a panic, hiding from the candy zombies who are quickly approaching his house, and they just straight up busting through the boarded up windows. So Zim tells Gur to activate the defenses, and you just hear laser fire begin. So I think these kids might be dead. Dib reality jumps yet again and breaks into Zim's house. Gur then goes outside to deal with the kids' zombies, while Dib is begging Zim for help as Zim is just shouting at him.
Help! You! Come to me, your greatest, most amazing enemy, your future slave master, and you ask for help?
Unfortunately for Zim, he tries to push Dib out the window and gets pulled into the reality jump with him. And after being chased by these horrifying creatures, they realize they have to work together to escape, since the only way out is through Dib's head.
Wait, I can still do stuff to your legs, right?
I guess, but
Wait! No! Gah! Curse you!
They start searching for a way out while avoiding the demons of this world, and the music in this episode is just top notch. It keeps you on the edge of your seat the entire time. And I guess Dib felt the same way, because he finally got the necklace off and used it to betray Zim, who promptly then gets sucked up in the sewer sucker system, and they take him to be experimented on. A demonic Miss Bitters, which is absolute nightmare fuel, comes out of the shadows and realizes that they captured Zim and not Dib. She forces one of the monsters to the realm of eternal screaming and restlessness and comes up with another plan. They threaten Zim's life for Dib to hand him over, and obviously he doesn't care at all, so the monster scent has failed, and another goodbye is said for the next poor soul sent to the realm of eternal screaming. Luckily for Zim, this allowed him to escape. We cut back to the real world, and Gur has snapped and is attacking all of the kids for their candy in a candy-starved frenzy. He devours it all and knocked the kid so hard his underwear fly off. His pants still on. underwear, that is impressive. When we get back to Dib sneaking into his alternate dimension house, the demon version of his father shows up, and if that wasn't scary enough, just look at Demon Gaz. Gaz threatens to open his head, and in all the screaming, Zim finds out where they are.
Oh, come on! I break free, and now I have to go back to rescue that little rat that left Zim to rot? Why must it be?
Zim breaks into the house to find the scope, and when he looks into it, he screams at the top of his lungs. Dib is strapped to a table as the demons are planning to open the portal in his head so they can rule the real world. But before they succeed, Zim busts through the window in a giant mecha, saves Dib, and blasts all of the monsters in some sticky green goo. Now, of course, it won't be that easy, and Demon Bitters just starts busting out of her clothes, horns ripping from underneath, and transforms into this giant, disgusting wasp-like creature. But they manage to escape using the giant mech. Zim starts wedging a cone inside of Dib's head so he can escape as the monsters approach, and he ditches him. Just no F's given at all. So Zim makes it back to the real world, where a disgustingly and sticky Gur is in the middle of the street on a throne of candy, surrounded by passed out and sticky injured children. Dib is backed into a corner in the other dimension by Bitters, but Dib uses his gigantic head, and that's right, he jumps inside of his own hole. He pops out completely inside out, and it is absolutely disgusting. But he's fine, unlike Zim.
As soon as my skeleton stops being broken, I'm going to destroy you, Dib.
But of course, we can't end there. Bitters pops out of Dib's head, but after seeing all the disgusting and beat up and sticky children, and finally, Gur at the top of the candy throne, just sticky and gross and making noises you don't ever want to hear, she panics and flees back into Dib's mind. And then he just ditches all of them.
Zim has returned just for you. You must feel pretty special.
Bad Rubber Piggy is one of the most unhinged episodes of the series. It opens up with Dr. Membrane showing that he has officially created a method of time travel. He takes questions from the audience, which begins with a small child who is extremely angry that his mother makes him eat breakfast chunks. So he asks if he could go back in time and stop them from being invented. And yes, this is possible, very simply actually.
By using temporal object replacement technology.
Yeah, I didn't say it because I can't or anything. Dr. Membrane just says it better, that's all. Now, this technology will allow you to replace an item from the past with an item from the present. And to showcase this, they replace the sack of bran that created breakfast chunks with a giant squid, which I'm pretty sure just kills this guy. The main issue is apparently not that they killed a man, but that this would have a ripple effect through time and cause breakfast chunks to become breakfast squids. And that would just be the beginning. Somehow, this also resulted in some gigantic fish in a bear suit rampaging Tokyo. And now this fish in a bear suit literally picks up a bus and eats a child. Like, that child is actually dead. So basically, what Dr. Membrane is trying to say is,
Anybody who would build a space-time object replacement device is a complete moron!
Man, this dude just keeps stealing my thunder. So of course, Zim is that perfect moron, and he creates the space-time object replacement device and instantly starts focusing on Dib's past self. He breaks out a hunter-destroyer machine to send back in time with the intent to destroy Dib. And somehow, Pocket Change Gur over here finds a flaw in this plan.
Wait, if you destroyed Dib in the past, then he won't ever be your enemy. Then you won't have to send a robot back to destroy him, and then he will be your enemy, so then you will have to send a robot back!
Zim doesn't listen, but luckily the portal does and spits it back out for not being a compatible item. I'm not sure why this is not a compatible item, maybe because it would just destroy everything or cause a ripple, the same reason why Gur's head exploded, but I digress. So instead, he tosses a pig that Gur is playing with into the portal instead. This replaces Dib's tricycle with a pig, and he goes flying into a tree so hard that the bark breaks off of the other side of the tree. Now, I have no idea how hard you would have to hit a tree to do this, but it was hard. And that isn't all we see. This incident has affected Dib in the current timeline. He's missing a tooth, has bumps or warts or something all over his face, droopy eyes, and a bit of a lisp. And he's missing his left hand. Like, dude, that escalated so fast. And I know that was Zim's plan all along, but damn, dude, like, it was a 3-year-old kid. You just took his hand. A commercial of Bloaty's Pizza Hog comes on, and we learn that Dib also has a phobia of pigs now, too. Understandably so, since he lost an arm at 3 years old. Oh, yeah, and let's not forget that Gur lost his pig friend.
Why? Why my piggy? I loved it, you piggy.
So it's back to past Dib, who's flying around using a hover helmet, and what does Zim do? He asks Gur, who's in tears by the way, for another pig, and replaces the helmet with another pig, sending Dib crashing straight down to earth. This results in current Dib now missing even more teeth, bigger face bumps, and tubes connected to his neck, and a backpack he has to wear to what I can only assume is breathe. His lisp is even worse. He looks like absolute hell. And even if you're typically someone who roots for Zim, it's hard to not feel bad for what's being done to Dib, especially because of how young he was in these past versions of himself. So Zim, of course, demands piggies, and he gets endless pigs to torture Dib with. So we cut back to Dib, who's filming some hairy-looking kid and accusing him of being Sasquatch, which is a little messed up, but I don't think he deserves what's about to happen, because of course his camera is replaced with a little piggy, and he comes crashing down from the tower. So present Dib is now even worse. He's missing chunks of his hair. He's hobbling over more than before. These giant, disgusting veins are popping out of his head, and he just looks like he has been through absolute hell. And he has. It's a miracle he hasn't died yet. He's walking down the street towards Zim's house, and he bumps into Gur holding a piggy, and his screams manage to scare Gur off, who drops the pig at his feet. This causes him to start banging on Zim's door because he finally realized that it was Zim's involvement with the pigs that changed his past. But Zim is not done. We cut back to past Dib, who's trying to be revived by the paramedics. And before we continue, can we just acknowledge real quick this creepy kid with the big forehead who's just smiling right above him? Like, dude, this episode isn't as dark or disturbing as the others necessarily, but it's just so twisted that I needed to include it. So Dib is about to be shocked back to life by the defibrillators. I think I said that right. They turn into piggies, which, to be honest, I don't know what would happen if you took those and replaced them with piggies. But in this instance, what we do know is Dib flatlines. Zim leaves the basement in triumph, but unfortunately for him, he left a little too early. Dib is alive, and he's been resuscitated. But this altered the timeline even further. Dib's skeleton was crushed by the paramedics, so his father, Dr. Membrane, created the new Mega Boy 3000, which gave Dib the strength of 10,000 little boys. So now, Dib is superpowered and knows Zim was the one that ruined his childhood, and he just starts destroying the house bit by bit in search of Dib. So Zim just starts hurling piggies through the gate, but every little piggy gives Dib's armor an upgrade. I mean, he has rockets now, for God's sake. So Gur runs off. He narrowly escapes the rockets with the final pig, and Zim comes up with an idea. He decides to warn his own past self to never use the portal. And it seemingly worked. Dib went from about to kill Zim to being on his front lawn looking normal again. And then he gets dragged off by the lawn gnomes who just beat the ever-loving crap out of him. I mean, listen to these noises. We cut back to Gur asking where the last piggy went, and we see Zim just drooling from the mouth and holding a brain. His own brain was replaced with the last piggy. So yeah, is Zim dead? Is he not dead? I don't know. My guess is that Gur found a way to save him, probably in some desperate attempt to get the last piggy back or something, but who knows? I hope you enjoyed the video as much as I enjoyed making it, because going back through Invader Zim to find these episodes was an absolute blast, and I just cannot wait to check out even more series from my childhood and even some newer ones here on the channel. So be sure to subscribe if you enjoyed yourself, and let me know in the comments below what other series you'd like to see me cover here on the channel. The videos have been doing so much better than I ever could have imagined they'd be this early in the channel's lifespan, and thank you all so much for the continued support. Whether this is your first video with me, the fourth, or maybe you're watching this a year from now, but thank you so much for the support, and I hope to see you in the next video.